Welcome to Season 4 of the Changing Earth podcast with Sara F. Hathaway, blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sara F. Hathaway.
Hi, and welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. This is episode number 141, Season 4, Episode 17. Well, I would assume that you're all out there dying to hear how the Self-Reliance Expo went in Texas last weekend, but you know that I'm a prepper, I'm a prepared person, and so I recorded this episode early. That way I didn't have to scramble on Monday morning to try and get it produced for you, and I can do a quality job of it. So you're just going to have to wait till next week to find out how that went, and I'm sure I'll have lots of fun information and stories for you. So let's jump right into the meat and potatoes of today's podcast. Last week, Dexter and Johnny went out on the scouting mission for Master Sergeant Bennett, and they were really dismayed until they ran into a familiar face. So today, we're going to find out how that meeting went, what became of it. And, you know, Dexter would be in a much different place if it weren't for this family that he has known for many, many years. His mom, you know, has history with them. And so this brings up the issues of families supporting families in an SHTF situation. I've talked a lot about community lately and how I've talked a lot about community lately and how my journey changed along my podcasting career from the thinking of my family only to thinking of multiple families and how we're going to assist each other. So this podcast rolls right along those same lines. We got James Hart on today, and he is going to discuss with us the roles that families have in helping other families. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into Chapter 17 of Battle for the South. Chapter 17. Rob, are you here? Harold, Rob's father, yelled down the hall. Yeah, Dad, Rob yelled back. Can you come here for a minute? Harold requested. Sure, Rob answered loudly, and then whispered to Dexter and Johnny, Stay here, I'll be right back. Rob loped down the hall. Lieutenant Ashish! What a surprise, Rob stated innocently, recognizing his father's boss. They had moved into this house over a month ago, and the lieutenant had always talked about coming over for a visit. Rob was curious why he would choose now. Finally got a chance to come by and see the new place. This is a much nicer home than that government apartment, the lieutenant commented, as he walked from the living room into the kitchen, scoping out the features of the home. It sure is, Rob replied, trying to act normal. You know, this home reminds me of the first home my family and I owned when I opened my first clothing store in Atlanta, he mused as he walked around the small family room and kitchen. And Rob, don't you have your own apartment in this house? I do, sir. It's nice to have my own space, Rob entertained him. A young man needs his own space, Rob. I've been watching you. He stopped his exploring and looked at Rob. Rob's heart felt like it would burst onto the floor in a bloody heap at the man's feet. You're a hard-working young man. Your numbers on your installation crews are superb, the lieutenant commented. Thank you, sir. Rob was unsure what to say. Now, son, let's see that place of yours, the lieutenant requested nonchalantly. Oh, you wanted to see it now? You know how bachelors are. It's really messy, Rob tried to elude him. Of course, son. I was young once, too. I won't be surprised. I didn't come all this way to get anything less than the grand tour, Lieutenant Ashish insisted. Yes, of course, sir, Rob acquiesced. Watching the conversation closely, Harold feared that Rob had already found Dexter. Harold's position within the communications department gave him access to information that wasn't usually shared with the public. He had known Dexter was going to be in the city before he ever took one step into Dallas. He had watched the order for the arrest issue and the warrant level increase. Harold had thought for sure the federal forces would find them. When they didn't, he gave Rob the day off to look for the boy. He knew things had gone desperately wrong. There was never a moment's hesitation to help the young man. Dexter's mother and father had never hesitated to help his family, and had shown the same loyalty to his family for 9 long years of life in the refugee camp. Harold had often wondered what would have happened if his family had left with the Moors to chase dreams of freedom. He thought he was too old for romantic ideas and buckled down to carve out some sort of stability for his family. Now they had their home in Dallas, and a life not too different from the one he had known before the Great Quake. The big difference was the never-ending bureaucratic control, quotas, and the penalties for stepping out of line. If Dexter was on the other side of that door, it would ruin everything, but that was a risk he was willing to take. Dexter was family. Harold looked on as Rob slowly turned the door handle. "Well, come on, son, get on with it," the lieutenant urged. The door opened, and Lieutenant Ashish gazed upon an empty sitting room with the gentle breeze blowing a white curtain in front of an open window. "This is great, Rob, and hardly the mess you described," the lieutenant declared. "You have your own bedroom and bathroom back there?" "Yes, sir, quite a change from how I grew up," Rob explained. "See what happens when you're a productive member of our great society, son," the lieutenant said proudly. "Yes, sir," Rob answered simply, for lack of anything else to say. "Well, gentlemen, the place is wonderful, and I would love to stay and say hello to the missus, but we've got quite a storm rolling in from the south. Houston won't survive the day," he commented nonchalantly, heading for the door. "Those arrogant rednecks should have gotten with the program a long time ago, and we'd be sending federal rescue squads in to help them right now." "I'm sure the people would have been better off," Harold agreed politely, choking on the words. He and his family had been on a federal rescue squad before. He remembered watching people die while supplies were being shuttled out. "Thank you for the lovely tour," the lieutenant said politely as he left the house. The door closed and father and son listened for the lieutenant's footsteps to go down the stairs. "Did you find him?" Harold whispered to Rob. Rob ushered his father down the hall. "He's here, or was here," Rob explained, curious where Dexter had gone to. Rob went back into his sitting room with his father on his heels. He went to the window and peeked out cautiously. There were guards walking by, but everything was calm. Then they heard noise from the bathroom and found Dexter lowering Trucker down to Johnny from the attic crawl space. Dexter looked down and saw Harold enter. The man had been like a second father to him for many years. As soon as the dog was safe, Dexter jumped down and caught Harold up in a giant hug. "Oh my God, Dexter," Harold said excitedly, but in a hushed tone. "Look at you. You've grown so much." "And you have some new scars," he commented, noticing how hardened the young man appeared to have become. "We found my grandparents," Dex informed him, forgetting his communications position. "I heard," Harold replied. "Why didn't you stay, Dex?" "I didn't fit in that world, Harold. Not after all we've been through," and Dexter blundered. "And there was this girl," Harold filled in the blanks. Dexter blushed and denied the truth that he had poured his heart and soul out to a young aristocratic lady who had used him like a toy and thrown him out when she was done. Harold kept up the banner, urging the truth out of him. Okay. So there was this girl. But my choice to become a merc was not because of her. It was the best choice for Trucker and me," he said, rubbing his dog. "Plus I met Johnny, and he's the real love of my life," Dexter teased. Harold stumbled for a minute. "Oh, you're—" "Hell no," Johnny responded, seeing where the conversation was going. "It's not gay, Harold. We're just horny," Dexter teased. Rob laughed heartily, and Johnny punched Dexter in the arm. Harold quickly brought the conversation back. "Seriously, Dex, it's nice to see you. But have you heard what is going on? How do you plan on getting out of here?" Harold wished they had more time to catch up, but he knew that would have to wait. "I heard from the Federal Forces major who tried to arrest me that war had been declared on the mercenaries. I know my mom and dad aren't in the northern region. We know Johnny's dad is in federal prison, and Master Sergeant Bennett is waiting for me to come back with intel, but I still have no idea how we're going to get out of here," Dexter explained. "The Federal Forces are doing much more than that. The chatter indicates they are mobilizing for a full invasion on the north. They are selling it as northern treason against the Union. The major social safety members will end up controlling it all," Harold panicked. "My brother and grandparents are still there," Dex worried, as Trucker whined beside him, upset by this change in character. "I've got to tell Bennett. We need to get there right away." "Dexter, get to this address," Harold explained without hesitation. He had to get this boy out of the city. He wrote steadily on a piece of paper. The woman who lives there, Yolanda, will help you. Go get your crew and get out tonight. I'll get her the message, and she'll be ready. Okay, Dexter agreed. His mind was reeling as he grabbed the paper from Harold. He hugged the man deeply again. We will see each other again. Now go, Harold ordered as they walked to the door. As Harold opened it for them, he stared into Dexter's eyes and asked, Where are they? Dexter knew he meant his parents. They're down south. Maybe headed your way, Dexter replied as he went out the door with Trucker and Johnny. Good to see you, Rob. Take care of your old man, he concluded as he and Johnny slipped into the shadows and melted away. They double-timed it back to Master Sergeant Bennett as the late afternoon began to slip away. They found a Master Sergeant with a vein bulging from his forehead, pacing the floor. Well, it's about time, gentlemen, Bennett said with relief as they entered. Where have you been? We ran into Rob Duncan, Dexter informed him. Harold's son? The Master Sergeant questioned. The same. Harold's been stationed here. He has a way out for us, but we have to go tonight, Dexter sputtered. Do you still trust him, Dexter? Bennett had to ask. Dexter paused for a moment as he checked over his pack. Without question, Dexter replied. You sure? Time can change people. He has a nice, comfortable federal job now. Why would he want to put that at risk? Bennett prodded. Dexter stopped what he was doing and looked at Bennett. Why did you, sir? Bennett didn't have an answer and began packing his gear. Dexter gave him the paper with the address and explained the news about the northern invasion to him. What are you talking about, Master Sergeant? We're not headed west. We're going north. Johnny's dad, my brother, and grandparents, Major Burgess, they are all there. We have to help them, Dexter pleaded passionately. Help them do what, Dex? Evacuate to the west? Look around. There's 4 of us. We knew this day might come, and the plan is to regroup with the mercenaries and refugees in the west and plan our strategy from there. The Master Sergeant knew he had to look past the emotions of the situation and follow the game plan. Fine. Then Johnny and I will go, Dexter puffed, infuriated. No, Dex, we won't, Johnny chimed in. My dad's in trouble too, but I think the Master Sergeant is right. We must regroup with the mercenary forces if we have any hope of winning this war. You're only saying that because there's no hope of saving your dad, Dexter snapped at his friend. My brother needs me. Johnny was obviously dejected by Dexter's hurtful words. Dexter, the Master Sergeant countered. If you go north, you will die, and then you're no help to anyone. Right now, we need to focus on getting out of this city, and I need both of your heads 100% in the game. Do you hear me, soldiers? Bennett demanded. Their training and instincts brought them back to reality. Yes, sir, they responded, strapping on their gear. All right, so Dexter and Johnny return to Bennett with an exodus plan, but their opinions of what to do after they leave the city vary. So as I mentioned in the intro, without the assistance of Harold's family, Dexter would be in a much different position. Harold put his family's life on the line to assist the young man without questioning that decision. Here today to talk about families helping families is James Hart. James really needs no introduction on my show. He's been with us since the very beginning, season 1, 2, and 3. He's the author of Urban and Wilderness Emergency Preparedness. A veteran of 2 tours of Vietnam, James has been all over the world. His survival training began at age of 7 when he was stranded in the Mojave Desert for 7 hours without food or water in 1954. He's done a ton of scouting work, including obtaining Life Scout, and served as a Scoutmaster, Assistant Scoutmaster, Venture Advisor, and earned the Baden-Powell Award. He is an avid outdoorsman. He's camped all over the place and been in 42 of the 50 states of the U.S., 3 provinces of Canada, sailed the Pacific Ocean, and crossed the equator, and 35 countries from the jungles of South Africa to the Himalayas of Nepal. Having earned an associate's photography degree from the Houston Community College, he has beautifully captured many of his travels on his camera. He's now retired, hanging out in Dallas, where he lectures on wilderness and survival training. You can get a hold of James at his new website, which is heartsurvival.com. That's heartsurvival.com. Before we welcome James to the show, let's go ahead and get a word from our sponsor. Today I want to tell you about a video that was just released by the man who notoriously predicted Trump's victory. He was one of the few who predicted Trump would win the presidential election, and he was even mocked on live TV for saying Hillary would lose. He's also notorious for predicting other major events, such as the financial fiasco in 2008. I'm talking about Jim Rickards. He's the nation's most vocal and intelligent proponent of the gold standard. Not to mention, he's a national security advisor, Pentagon insider, and financial warfare expert. Well, now he's making another shocking Trump prediction, one that he anticipates the fake news media will not cover. If you want to hear about this shocking prediction, go to www.author-sarah-f-hathaway.com/newsletter. This shocking prediction could impact your life and the lives of millions of Americans. Go to www.author-sarah-f-hathaway.com/newsletter and click on the show notes for this week's podcast. That's www.author-sarah-f-hathaway.com/newsletter. Hi, and welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. Today, I am back with my good friend, James Hart. James, thank you so much for spending your time with me this morning. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. I always enjoy these podcasts.
Right, I know. Any excuse to to sit down and have a chit-chat is just fine by me. So you have a new website and stuff going on. Why don't you talk a little bit about that first so we can get everybody excited about it, and then we'll get into today's topic.
Yeah, I've gotten away from my other website. It seemed too bland. I couldn't change it up that much, and so I just said throw away the old and come in with the new. Right. And the old website was kind of long, prepared with James Hart, blah, 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 blah.
Right, yeah.
And so I just got it short. It's heartsurvival.com, and nice, simple, and it was rather easy to do. I'm still learning this new format and everything, but I like it a lot better, and I'm still working with it, still working on it, but it came up real good. I'll be able to get a lot of different things into it, and on the blogs on it, people can come in and they can add their 2 cents, as they say, to it, and they can put their learning abilities into it and say things.
Yeah, it's a cool feature of the website. It's a lot cleaner, a lot easier to navigate around. I like it. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
So, alrighty, well, we have limited time this morning because you got stuff going on this afternoon. So let's jump right into our topic. And so in this chapter of my book, Dexter goes and he reunites with the family that he grew up with, the Shermans. So it really started firing my brain off as far as, in these SHTF situations, there's going to be extreme loss of life, and nothing's going to guarantee that your family is going to be the one that you end up with. And we're going to find that families have to bond together to create these communities, these extended families. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, and we'll just kind of start with traditionally, why was the family unit so important? Like, we've really gotten away from it in these modern social media times. It doesn't seem like the focus is there. But traditionally, why was your family unit so very important?
Well, the most important thing is the people could work together and get more things done faster. Like building a barn. You can get several families together and they could put a barn together in a little over a week from ground up. One person, it would take him over a year to build. And
and trying to heat it up on your own. That's not going to happen, right?
And especially some of them them long beams and everything else. He would have to set up those pole jigs to lift the beam and work it, and he'd have to use a lot of leverage and everything else to get those up there. And by using several different families to help him, they could get it up there and nothing flat. An example is the Marine Corps basic training, where they lift the log and carry it. You get 10 or 12 people and they can lift a pretty good sized log, and one person can't even drag it.
Right.
Another idea is on their crops and everything else, they would all get together, and this family's crops would come in and they'd run over there and they'd help him get theirs done, and then next one and next one and next one. And this person would have this piece of equipment, this person would have this piece of equipment, and they just rotated, come right on around until all the crops were done. And they would, the ladies would all get together and help do the canning and the different things to preserve the food and everything. And if it wasn't that way, there'd be a lot of crops that would not get taken care of properly and ruin in the field. And even if they got harvested, by the time it was all canned, you'd have a lot of wasted, rotted food there. So
yeah, maybe we've made things too easy, and that's why we don't really need each other anymore, right?
That's right. It's gotten too easy for people to go to the store and buy a can of this and a can of that, and they don't even know how to can anymore.
Yeah, I know.
Probably, just a low percentage of people know how to can and preserve food anymore.
Yeah, people are like, you can? What are you, Little House on the Prairie? I'm like, no,
yeah.
We've just always done that. Like, I don't know, my family's always done it, and that's just what we do, So.
Well, a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy because I know how to make quilts, I know how to can, I know how to preserve food, I know how to grow food. Even if I don't do it, I know how to do it.
Right.
I'm so busy with teaching people and everything on how to do it.
Yep, I get caught in that position. Yeah. So, and traditionally too, our extended families, grandparents, aunts, uncles, they played a huge role in the raising of the kids and family dynamics and things like that. It seems like we've gotten away from that too. We just, put our old timers in the old person's home or whatever, and it's just horribly, disgusting to me, basically. So why was that so key as well? Why were those people so valued? Because everybody's like, well, if stuff hit the fan, and you're older, you're basically no use anymore, and that's so not true. So can you talk to me a little bit about that one?
Yes, in the extended families back then, the older people was respected and actually honored because of the knowledge that they had in doing all of these things. They knew how to blacksmith and shoe horses. They knew how to fix things and how to build things, and they didn't have to have a 12th grade education or a engineering degree to build all these things. They didn't even have to draw it out. They just knew.
And when it came to cultural and societal values, they were the main instillers of the traditions, right? To keep those kinds of values flowing and things like that.
That's right. And while these families were out doing these different jobs, crops and tending to the animals and everything else, the little children didn't tag along. They stayed there at the house, and It was just natural for the grandparents that couldn't do that work anymore to keep an eye on them. And in doing that, they passed on their teachings of the ethics and respect and things like that. The religious part of it, they passed them on to the children. And as you get older, you just don't put up with so much stuff as you did when you were younger.
That's
And
true.
they had to toe the line, or it isn't like now. They get their butt whipped.
Yeah, Christian can be a little drama king, and so there's times, it's okay. You don't have to. My dad's like, no, that stuff doesn't fly around here, and he straightens right up, Mom can't make him do that, but Grandpa sure can, So.
And in the extended families, when there was no older family members, they would leave their children with their neighbor or someone like that had an older elder, while they went and helped out doing other people's helping other people.
Right. It was our community, right?
That's right. They were the extended families became families. They you and I have been together for what, 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah.
And we're just like brother and sister almost.
Absolutely.
And that's the way it became. Your neighbor became your extended family. They became like brothers and sisters, and from a friend's point on up to a family, and they looked after each other.
And I see a lot of that, like, naturally developing. We talk a lot about an SHTF situation, obviously, on my show. But how do you think that, well, this is just speculation, how do you think that we could strengthen our families back up now without having to have an SHTF situation to do that?
Well, by looking over the fence, getting out of the house. Most people, they just do not get out of the house except go to the store, go to work. If they get out of the house and go to some function, they just don't, they don't meet people. And when they do, once they're turn their back and go on about their business further, they just don't get phone numbers and keep in touch and stuff like that. They need to get to know their neighbor and value that friendship that they have in their immediate neighborhood. Here in my neighborhood, on my street, I know everybody here on my street, including the times they come and go, because that's just the way I am. That's the way I was raised.
Right. You can look out for them.
And they know me. They know that they can always call on me for different things. If they have a garage door that won't open, they'll call on me to come help them, things like that. And it's just a matter of saying hi to them when you see them. And next time, it's how's everything going, and just talk a little bit more each time and get to know them families.
Actually care, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Actually care.
Yeah. Not just being there to be there to, hey, how's it going?
They're not living next to you to get something from you. They're living next to you because they want to live in that house.
Right. Yeah, and they might need assistance with the barn raising project. I mean, it's not a barn raising project, but, the garage door. Project they're working on. They pay it back to you one day. We do that a lot because there's only a couple of tractors on our street, So we're always, all right, how can we finagle for the tractor, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I think that, with the distraction from coming off of our families, it's just been a really, really sad thing. Because it's kind of like, I was always taught, if you can't love yourself, you can't love God, right? So that's kind of
That's
primary.
right.
You got to love yourself, you got to love God. You're God's creation. And then that extends right to your family. If you can't, these are the people, like I always say, people go to work and they bring all their problems home. Well, like, you shouldn't be doing that, because those are the people that love you the most. We got to strengthen up those avenues as well if we're going to keep our family dynamics. And then that's what leads into the community, in my opinion.
That's right.
So, what kind of patterns, like when you look at strong families and things like that, what kind of patterns do you think that they are, what's so special about these families that actually make it work?
Well, they had a solid communication among the different families and their own family members, and they was willing to listen to them and not go against them. If one of them had a different opinion or a different point of view, they let them have that. They all realized that not everybody was the same.
Right.
And as long as they didn't step on toes or anything like that.
Right. It didn't create a major discord. Otherwise, it would have to be communicated. I think you hit it right on the head. Communication.
Yeah,
So
communication was the most thing, and then they also spent quality time with their neighbors and with their family members. The children, when they got together, usually different holidays and everything else, they'd spend a little bit of time with their neighbors, but they spent most of their time with their family.
Right.
When the crops were all in, they had a big party. The work was finally done. It was time to relax and have a little bit of fun and get that stress out of them, of beating the weather and the climate, to get all of that hard work done. And they set aside a time to just enjoy each other and thank each other. And the kids, they had their games that they played, and they each got a chance to play their favorite game. The adults, they had their little agenda that they did, whether it was playing dominoes or dancing or whatever, and they just enjoyed being together, no matter how simple it was. And people nowadays, they just don't, they don't enjoy the simple things in life.
Right. Like, take those 2 minutes to celebrate your achievements with the ones you love. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And, working together like that in a community, when you work together, it creates these awesome bonds. It's just, you got to teamwork, you got to communicate to work as a team and make things happen. Creates awesome bonds. But then the playtime, like you say, I mean, just invaluable to go and actually socialize and get out of your comfort zone, right?
That's right. Yeah, just kick back and enjoy. And if your idea of kicking back and enjoying is just sitting back on the side and watching everybody else have fun, well, so be it. That's the way you do it. Right. And if you're the clown of the bunch, well, have at it.
Right.
And that's the way they were back then, and
maybe
now
it's over entertainment now. Like, you have too much to entertain yourself, so why even bother, right?
And there's too much of this individual inward entertainment with all these electronic devices and everything else. People just we're teaching our kids just not to interact with others.
That's true. That's true. And then, oh my gosh, at the schools and stuff, they're not even allowed to hug each other, no touch, no. I'm like, wow, okay. Interesting stuff. So in a, in a SHTF long-term survival situation, these strange families that we run into that we don't know yet, that we haven't really bonded with yet, these families might become your extended family. So how do you think, how do you see the dynamics of that kind of rolling out? Maybe it's a Chinese family, or, totally different culture. How do you see that kind of, do you think that would be okay for a meld? Do you think everybody would just buck up and work together?
Well, some people nowadays would have trouble doing it. Because I've found that people nowadays have gotten
close-minded,
tunnel vision.
Yeah.
And they're not as open-minded. People will eat different foods and everything, but I'm not so sure about the welcoming them into their homes,
right?
Type of thing. So they would probably have them not ostracized, but they wouldn't welcome them in as readily.
Because those cultural differences can be they can be tough to bridge,
yeah.
Depending on how vastly different it is.
You'd have some that would, be more than happy to welcome. Mm-hmm. There'd be others that would be standoffish.
Fair enough. Ostracize themselves because they don't feel part of the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could agree with that. If I was, just take, for example, like if it was a Muslim community and I was supposed to go and become family members with them, I'd probably have a really difficult time with that.
Yeah.
So not that I wouldn't try to be open-minded and stuff. It's just not a lot of my same belief systems. So that would be a difficult situation. That's kind of what I was like, when you only have so many people, do you just kind of brush those things aside and be like, we need workers. We need to work together and make this happen. Or, right? Or, I don't know how that would play out.
Yeah. It would be different.
I'm going to have to explore that a little in my next book. So if you have this really strong family unit and you have another family who's struggling, how do you see them kind of supporting each other in a long-term survival situation?
In a long-term survival situation, they would help those people who were struggling as long as those people were showing them that they were trying.
Right.
And you'd have some people that would be kind of hard on them just because they, maybe they had a teaching impediment or didn't have the common sense. But you would have others that would jump in there and help them work through it.
All right, well, let's wrap it up there. I know you got a busy day ahead of you. You got the new website, Heart Survival, going on. And that is looking really good. So any closing words that you want to give the audience before we head on out?
Just keep on doing.
That's right.
Keep trying to do your best. We'll see y'all later. And I'm getting called, so.
All righty. As always, James, thank you so much for coming on the show. Complete pleasure to host you, and I'm sure I'll have lots of great stories next week of how the Self-Reliance Expo went. Today, I am excited because we're going to get to do something we haven't done in a very long time. It's that time again. It's time for review time. Got an opinion? I would love to hear it. Head on over to Amazon.com or Lulu.com and leave me a review on any of my books, including Day After Disaster, Without Land, The Walls of Freedom, and Battle for the South. Authors love reviews, so head on over there, help me out, and leave me your 2 cents. Today I'd like to present to you some reviews that I got on Battle for the South. We're up to 3 over there, so it's kind of dismal, but at least I have 3 to present to you today. If you guys get a moment, please head on out and leave any of my books a review. It really helps an author out. The first review that I have is from Diane, and Diane has been reading my books for a long time. Super supportive individual, and I just really enjoy counting her amongst my friends. And she said, I've read each of the books in this series. The first 2 were given to me by Sara to review. She got me hooked. I'm certain there will be a sequel to this one. Right, Sara? The next review that I have to present to you is from Ellen Kerr. Loving my Australian buddy over there, and definitely honored to count Ellen amongst my friends as well. And she says, brilliant series so far, and this installment does not disappoint. Sara takes the reader on a wild ride, which leaves you asking for more. Love it. Last review that I have to present to you is from Susan, and she says, I'm hooked on these books. Battle for the South is a perfect combination of action, suspense, and loyalty. Sara Hathaway's extraordinary writing allows the reader to feel the emotions of the characters and gives meaning to each scene and turn of events. She draws you into the characters and allows you to experience their loyalty and strong family bond. This is a great eye-opening and thought-provoking series, and I am anxiously awaiting the next book. So thank you very much to the 3 of you who took the time to go on over to Amazon and leave me a review. Love you guys, and it always helps me out because, honestly, Amazon helps push my books more the more reviews that I can get, so I can't encourage you enough to go out and do that. Well, thank you very much for your time today. Can't wait to see you next week, and I get to tell you all about what happened at the Self-Reliance Expo. Until then, remember, dream, survive, thrive.
Thank you for joining Sara for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster, Without Land, The Walls of Freedom, and Battle for the South at www.author.sarafhathaway.com. If you love Sara's books and this podcast, please head over to Amazon or iTunes and let everyone know by leaving a review.